Welcome back. You just heard from Representative John Snyder about why he supported the new law dramatically expanding the state's voucher program. Now we talk to the president of the Teachers Union in Miami, Karla Hernandez-Mats, who you may recall ran for lieutenant governor with Charlie Crist in November.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation where we're seeing the state privatize public schools. And, this is going to create a system, a two-part system where the government, instead of really focusing on ensuring that there is high quality public education access to all kids in all communities, by ensuring that to our public schools, which teach 90% of the children in the entire state, it's diverting funds and it's not creating access, but it's actually limiting access because we know that many times all these private schools have a wait list. And so these are wealthy parents that probably 85%, if not more, don't need this handout, are going to get a government handout, and it's going to impact the quality of education, the access to education for kids. And we've seen these studies, and if there is no study that actually indicates that voucher programs are successful for making sure that everyone in communities are able to access the education that they need. It's actually the contrary. We've seen how it has actually really diminished the access to quality public education for kids. So again, if they really cared about public education, and if this was about our schools, then they would look at Miami-Dade County Public Schools. They would say, hey, it's an A-rated district. It has some of the top schools in the nation. What do we do to put more funds in that system to make sure that everyone has access to high quality public education?
Well, wouldn't the argument be that one of the reasons why education has improved in Florida, why Miami-Dade is an A school, is as a result of the competition created by the voucher program that was started by Jeb Bush some 20 years ago, that by allowing parents to take their children into a charter school setting, that forced local schools, public schools, to be better, to compete in a way that drove test scores up? Isn't that a likely outcome, and won't that just continue as we expand that voucher program?
Well, it's interesting because 20 years ago, the rhetoric was that this was to help underprivileged communities and underserved kids, to give them access to education. But when you're saying that you're going to give an $8,000 handout to the wealthy, obviously it is no longer about creating opportunities for children. And the interesting part of that question, Jim, is that, you are emphasizing something, standards and policy that the state legislature has created. So they've created a system where we have accountability. Public schools are accountable to the public. Private schools are not. We have no idea whether their teachers are certified. In many cases, they're not. The curriculum, the quality of the teaching that's happening, what they are actually testing on, how these kids are moving through the community, and what the quality of education. But we do have accountability, and we have the highest standards of accountability because they have created it. And so even when we're taking that into perspective, the amount of choices that we have in Miami-Dade County Public Schools, with the magnet programs, with the academies, the level of education, and of course, the national accolades that we've received as a county for what we do, shows that not only are we meeting the standards that they have imposed on us, but we're excelling at them. And so if they know that what we are doing, it's working, despite being 48th in the nation for teacher pay, being defunded constantly every single year, and we're making these great gains, what research actually shows is that if you fund our public schools and you give us access to the resources that we need so that we can provide that education and that quality for our kids, then we would do so much better.
When I spoke earlier today to Representative Snyder, he said that any school that accepts these vouchers, that accepts this state money, there is accountability. Part of the agreement in terms of accepting it means that they will be held to certain standards. Is that not accurate?
That we have not seen that at all. That is not accurate. As a matter of fact, we know that there are many public schools that have lost the ability to see why some of these students are coming back into our schools when they fail at one of these schools or they get kicked out of these schools. So I think that's an important point. These voucher programs and these private schools, they can deny access to any child based on their gender, their nationality, the parent's income, all of these things.
If they have special, if for instance, they have special needs.
Absolutely. If they have, most of the private schools don't offer the robust programs that our public schools offer for special needs students. And, what that means is that certain kids will be accepted, the ones that they want, and other kids will not. And it's going to hurt disproportionately children with special needs and children from disadvantaged communities that they don't seem to deem their entry into these private schools.
I guess the question that really does rise more and more is, should parents not have the ability to receive money to be able to take their child to the school of their choice? Maybe it's a public school, or maybe it's a private school or a charter school, or it could also be homeschooled. Should a parent guiding their child not have the right to make those decisions and therefore then be supported by the state financially?
Well, here's the thing. I'm a parent also, and I do believe that parents should have choice and they should make decisions about their kids. But when you know that there's a public school system, especially like Miami-Dade, who again is an A-rated school district, has some of the top schools in the nation, that is doing right, and that all public schools across the state and the nation serve more than 90% of all children. There is a problem when you're taking public tax dollars funding private institutions that are not accountable. We don't know what they teach. We don't know if their teachers are certified to teach. We don't know the curriculum, how they're accountable to the public, because they don't have to publish anything. They're private entities, including financial disclosures. And so what we have found, through the years that this has been slowly happening, is that there's actually a lot of fraud that happens because there's mismanagement in these private institutions. And we also know that there's a lot of pop-up little schools that will just happen without anybody on faculty or staff that has an educational background, that understands how to run a school, that understands what children need in order to excel academically. And so these schools end up failing. And again, it's public tax dollars going to these for-profit institutions that are not accountable to us, when in fact our public schools that are doing well need the funding, are underfunded, don't have the things that we've been asking and pleading for and saying that we need. We're 48th in the nation in teacher pay, and we have a critical shortage. This is only going to exacerbate the fact that there's resources that exist.
Let me ask you that. Let's go to that. So let's take the private school, charter school aspect out of it. For the public school system, for instance, the Miami-Dade public school system, the state would argue that this will not affect their funding, that they will still get the same FTE for whatever students go to public schools. What do you believe the result will be on the public school system as we see these vouchers expanding more and more?
So that's an absolute false statement, because what happens is that they put more money in what we would call a pot for public schools, but that money that they put in there is for the voucher programs. So, they're not accounting for the vast number of students that they are predicting are going to take, these funds. So really what it does is it creates a system where we are continually being underfunded, because they're funding two types of systems out of one pot.
Who ends up in the public school system as this system grows larger and larger through vouchers? Who ends up being the students that are left behind?
Well, the beauty of public schools is that we accept all children, no matter their race, their nationality, their gender, their zip code, their ethnicity. We believe that all children should have access to a high quality public education. With the expansion of the voucher programs, we're going to see that it's going to start to re-segregate communities. And so the haves will continue to have, and they'll succeed. And then the have-nots and the vulnerable are the ones that will be left behind. And when you have an underfunded system that is already underfunded, like public schools, what you'll see is something that's very similar to what's happening in our Latin American countries. We don't have to go too far to see what happens when you have a system where parents that have the means take their kids to private schools, and then the ones that get left behind are the economically disadvantaged, the poor children, and the disabled children or students with disabilities. And so we're going to see that this is going to be something that is going to impact our communities. And it's horrible to see that this is where the state wants to take education, where the state has continually attacked public schools, is now privatizing public schools, and that the public doesn't have any say in how they're held accountable.
We'll be right back.